Right now, there are people making $70,000, $80,000 a year, even $100,000 a year, and they still can't afford a house. Let that sink in. These are not broke people. These are not irresponsible people. These are people doing exactly what they were told to do, working hard, saving money, trying to be financially smart. And yet, somehow, they're still locked out. So the question is, what changed? Because this didn't used to be normal. Just 10 or 15 years ago, the path was clear. You graduate, you get a job, you save for a few years, and eventually you buy a home. It wasn't easy, but it was possible. It felt like a natural step in life. Today, that same path feels completely broken. People are saving longer, earning more than previous generations at the same age, and still falling behind. And most of them think it's their fault. They think they're not saving enough, not earning enough, not trying hard enough. But the reality is much bigger than that. Because the housing market didn't just become more expensive, it fundamentally changed. And if you don't understand how it changed, you're going to keep playing a game that is no longer winnable in the same way. Let's start with something simple: the price of houses compared to income. In the past, a house would typically cost around 3 to 5 times your yearly salary. That was considered normal. That was manageable. Today, in many major cities and even average areas, that number has jumped to 8, 10, sometimes even 12 times your income. That's not just inflation. That's a completely different reality. Now think about what that means in practice. If you earn $60,000 a year, a normal house used to cost maybe $200,000 to $300,000. Now, that same person is looking at $500,000, $600,000, sometimes more. And that's before interest. Because here's the second problem: borrowing money is no longer cheap. For years, interest rates were extremely low, which made it easier to afford higher prices. Even if the house was expensive, the monthly payments were still manageable. But now, rates have increased significantly, which means you're not just paying for the house, you're paying for the cost of money itself. And this is where it gets brutal. Because even if house prices stopped rising today, your monthly payment could still be higher than it was a few years ago. Same house, same price, but a completely different financial burden. So now you're stuck in a situation where prices are high, interest rates are high, and your income is not keeping up. That's not a normal market. That's pressure building. But here's something most people don't even think about. You're not just competing against other buyers anymore. You're competing against institutions. Large investment firms, real estate funds, and corporations have entered the housing market aggressively over the past decade. They don't need mortgages the way you do. They don't wait to save for a down payment. They buy properties in cash, fast, at scale. Imagine trying to negotiate for a house, and the seller has 2 offers: one from you, dependent on bank approval, and one from a company that can close the deal in a few days, no questions asked. Who do you think they choose? This is why it feels like no matter how fast you move, you're always too late, because you're not playing the same game. And then there's supply. For years, not enough houses have been built. Construction slowed down after previous crises, regulations increased, costs went up, and supply never caught up with demand. So now you have more people trying to buy, fewer houses available, and prices getting pushed higher and higher. This creates something dangerous. Not a sudden crash, but a slow squeeze. A situation where nothing dramatic happens overnight, but over time, fewer and fewer people can afford to enter the market. And eventually, it becomes normal. That's the scariest part. Because when something becomes normal, people stop questioning it. Now let's talk about something even deeper: the system itself. Because most people still believe that owning a home is just a natural step in life. But what if that's no longer true? What if fewer people can afford to buy? More people have to rent. And if more people rent, that creates stable, long-term income for landlords, companies, and investors. In other words, there is a financial incentive for this trend to continue. You working hard and buying a home once is less profitable than you renting for 30 years. And that changes everything, because now you're not just dealing with a market, you're dealing with incentives. And incentives shape outcomes. This is why so many people feel stuck. They're following rules that were designed for a completely different environment, and they don't even realize it. Now let's talk about the consequences, because this doesn't just affect your ability to buy a house, it affects your entire life. People are delaying major decisions. They stay with their parents longer, they delay starting families, they postpone stability. And over time, that creates a ripple effect across the entire economy. Lower birth rates, higher stress levels, more financial pressure. And at the same time, wealth inequality increases, because those who already own property continue to benefit from rising prices, while those who don't fall further behind. So the gap grows, and it keeps growing. Now here's where most people make a critical mistake. They wait. They wait for prices to crash. They wait for interest rates to drop. They wait for the right time. But the problem is, the market doesn't need to crash for you to lose. If prices stay high, if incomes don't catch up, if competition remains strong, you're still being pushed out. Slowly, quietly, without realizing it. So what can you actually do? First, you need to understand that this is not just about saving money anymore. Saving alone is no longer enough in many cases. Because while you're saving, prices can rise faster than your savings. Second, you need to focus on increasing your income. Because in this environment, income growth matters more than ever. And third, you need to start thinking strategically, not emotionally. Because waiting for things to go back to normal might be the biggest mistake you can make. The housing market already changed. The rules already changed. And the longer you ignore that, the harder it becomes to catch up. This is not just about buying a house. It's about understanding the system you're in. Because if you don't, you might spend years doing everything right and still